Let the dark close in. Let it thicken like velvet soaked in night. Let the noise of the world peel away layer by layer until there is only stillness and the sound of your own breath slowing against your ribs. Listen carefully, because I'm about to tell you a story that has been lying to you your entire life. You believe you know it, a princess, a queen, a mirror that tells the truth, a crimson apple, a spellbound sleep, a kiss that restores what was lost, a promise that everything broken can be fixed. You learned this story before you learned fear, before you learned desire, before you learned what beauty demands in return. The girl with skin pale as untouched snow, lips like fresh blood, hair dark as a moonless sky, the queen who cannot bear being ordinary, the mirror that feeds her obsession. The seven men who shelter innocence, the apple, the fall, the awakening. Love wins, evil loses, the world makes sense. That is the version we repeat because it feels safe, because it helps us sleep. But the older version, the one carried in mouths instead of books, whispered by women who had buried children and watched time devour their faces, that story is not kind. In the original telling, the princess does not sleep. She dies, and death does not let her go. Her body is sealed inside a transparent coffin preserved with unnatural care. She does not rot, she does not decay. She is frozen in perfection, timeless, flawless, unreachable. Years crawl past her. She becomes an object, a relic, a spectacle, and the prince, he does not rescue her. He desires her because she is silent, because she cannot say no, because death has stolen her will and left only beauty behind. He begs for her corpse, not her hand, not her heart, her body, because looking at her is enough, and when the story reaches its end, there is no merciful justice. There is punishment. The queen is forced into iron shoes heated until they burn white-hot, metal screaming against flesh. She dances because pain allows no stillness. She dances until skin splits, until bone shows through, until her body collapses in front of a watching crowd. The wedding guests do not turn away, they applaud. And before the coffin, before the apple, before the fire and the celebration, there is consumption. The queen orders her daughter's organs delivered as proof. She plans to eat them, to swallow youth, to ingest beauty, to claim what time is stealing from her mouth and eyes. This is not a fairy tale. It is an autopsy. A story about vanity rotting from the inside, about beauty turned into currency, about how admiration becomes ownership and ownership becomes violence. This is a story about being seen too much, desired too long, valued only for what can be taken. So forget the gentle version. Let me tell you the one that survived because it hurt. The one gathered by the brothers Grimm from voices that understood fairy tales were warnings, not lullabies. This story endured because it exposed something ugly and true. Perfection is a cage, beauty is a sentence, and being worshipped is often just another way of being consumed. This is the story of Schneewittchen, not Snow White. That name is polished, softened, stripped of its teeth. Her true name means Little Snow White, and it was not chosen for innocence. It was chosen for contrast. Blood on snow, warmth against cold. Life spilling into winter. She was named not at birth, but by a dying woman clinging to a vision that would outlive her. Are you still with me? Good, pull closer to the dark. Let it listen with you, because this story does not begin with envy. It begins with longing, and that longing will poison everything it touches. The wish was made in winter, not a poetic winter, not a gentle snowfall fit for songs. This was a season that erased sound, a cold that hollowed bones, a white silence that swallowed roads, fields, and memory. Snow crushed the land beneath its weight. Inside the castle, behind walls meant to keep danger out, the queen sat alone. Her window was framed in black ebony, dark, glossy, reflective like a coffin lid. She stitched fabric that served no purpose. the idle labor expected of women whose lives were decorative. Outside, snow drowned the world. Inside, her thoughts wandered where they should not. Then the needle pierced her skin, a sharp breath, a flash of pain, 3 drops fell, red blooming against white, blood staining snow, life announcing itself against death. And in that moment, staring at that terrible, beautiful contrast, the queen spoke a wish aloud, a wish that would not grant joy, a wish that would carve a child into legend, a wish that would turn love into obsession and beauty into a weapon. This is where it begins, not with magic, with blood. The blood did not fall randomly. It landed on the snow that had gathered along the ebony window frame, 3 flawless drops perfectly spaced as if placed there by an unseen hand. Red, white, black blood, snow, wood, the oldest colors of the body and the grave. They were beautiful in the way wounds sometimes are raw, shocking, impossibly clean. The kind of beauty that steals your breath before your mind can warn you away. The queen stared at them, and something inside her shifted, not joy, not hope. Longing, a hunger so sharp it hurt behind her eyes, a desire so focused it felt like pain. Her fingers trembled, her breath fogged the glass. I wish, she did not speak loudly. There was no ceremony, no thunder, just a whisper released into an empty room, into falling snow, into whatever ancient forces lean close when desperate women finally speak their truth. I wish for a child, she murmured. A daughter, her gaze locked on the blood, with skin as white as snow, with lips as red as blood, with hair as black as ebony. The words lingered. They hung in the air like visible breath, slowly cooling, slowly solidifying. And like all wishes made in fairy tales, they were heard. 9 months later, the queen gave birth. The child was perfect, terrifyingly perfect. Skin pale as untouched snow, lips vividly red like fresh wounds. Hair dark and glossy as polished wood. The court whispered in awe. The wish had been fulfilled exactly. They named her Schneewittchen, Little Snow White. And then the queen died just like that, no miracle, no reward, no mercy. The good mother never survives. She cannot, because the story requires a stepmother. And stepmothers in fairy tales are never gentle. But stop for a moment. Think about the wish itself. The queen did not wish for a healthy child. She did not wish for kindness, or joy, or a long life free of suffering. She wished for beauty, specific beauty, measured beauty, beauty that could be named, compared, evaluated. She wished for a daughter who would be defined entirely by how she looked. And she got exactly what she asked for, but fairy tale wishes always demand payment. The price was her life. Snow White's first act, her very existence, killed her mother. Remember that, it will matter. The king mourned. For a year he dressed in black, spoke little, moved like a man carrying something too heavy to put down. He looked at his infant daughter with love and something else, something darker. Resentment, perhaps. Or fear, because every time he saw her face, he saw the wish. And the blood, and the grave. But a year is a long time to be alone. A kingdom needs a queen. A child needs a mother. A man needs a wife. So 1 year and 1 day after the first queen's death, he remarried. The new queen was beautiful, not gently beautiful, not kindly beautiful. She was devastating. The kind of beauty that stops conversation mid-sentence, that bends attention without asking, that makes people forget themselves and forgive what they should not. She had everything: grace, intelligence, command, and pride. A pride so vast it consumed her, the way fire consumes oxygen, quietly, completely, without apology. Her beauty was not something she possessed. It was something she worshipped, and she had proof of it. She owned a mirror, not a symbol, not a metaphor, a real mirror. An ancient thing framed in twisted metal, its surface deeper than glass should be. A mirror that answered questions. A mirror that spoke truth even when truth was cruel. She kept it hidden in her private chamber where no one could hear what she asked or what it answered. Every morning, every single morning, she stood before it, straight-backed, perfectly still, and she asked the only question that mattered. "Mirror on the wall," she said softly, "who in this land is fairest of all?" And every morning, without hesitation, the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." And the queen smiled, secure, satisfied, safe in the knowledge that she was winning because beauty was a competition and she was first. This ritual continued for years, 7 years, 7 winters, 7 summers, and during those 7 years Snow White grew. She was beautiful, everyone said so. White skin, red lips, black hair, exactly as wished, but she was still a child, still protected by innocence, still unaware that beauty can sharpen into a blade, still ignorant of the truth that admiration is often just hunger wearing a polite face. Until the day she turned 7. 7 is not a random number. In fairy tales, 7 is the age of awakening, the moment when children stop being symbols and start becoming threats. On Snow White's 7th birthday, the queen stood before her mirror as she always had. She asked her question, "Mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" For the first time in 7 years, the mirror did not answer immediately. It paused, the silence stretched, and in that hesitation something broke. The mirror finally spoke. "You, my queen, are fair, it is true," and then it continued. "But Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." The words did not strike the queen, they entered her. Her face drained of color, white as bone, then flushed violently red, then drained again, leaving something corpse-like behind. Inside her chest, something ruptured, not her heart, herself, the thing that held her together, the thing that gave her shape and meaning, the thing that told her she mattered. She was no longer the fairest. A child had replaced her. A 7-year-old girl. That sentence was worse than any insult, worse than any wound. Because beauty was not something she had. Beauty was everything she was, and without it, she was nothing. From that moment on, whenever the queen's eyes landed on Snow White, something inside her twisted violently. Hatred. Not metaphorical hatred, not abstract resentment, physical hatred, the kind that burns in the gut, the kind that makes your hands shake, the kind that tastes metallic at the back of the throat. The original German does not soften this. It says the queen turned yellow and green with envy. Not figuratively, literally. Her skin sickened, jaundiced, discolored. Jealousy made her ill. She could not eat, she could not sleep. Her body rejected peace the way it rejects poison. Every time she saw Snow White in the gardens, laughing with servants, running between trees, simply existing, the hatred intensified. The child did nothing wrong. That was the problem. Snow White did not compete, did not boast, did not even know she was winning. She was beauty without effort. And the queen was being devoured from the inside by the very thing she had worshipped. Consumed, digested, destroyed. 6 months after the mirror spoke its truth, the queen decided. She could not live while Snow White lived. It was that simple. One of them had to die. And the queen had no intention of being the one in the ground. She summoned the huntsman. The story never bothers to give him a name. He is just the huntsman. A function, a tool, a hand holding a blade, but he was a real man. His name was Thomas. He was loyal to the king, skilled with bow and knife, a provider of meat for the royal table. He knew the forest, its paths, its teeth. He understood how animals died, and he was about to be asked to murder a child. The queen called him to her private chamber. This alone was wrong. She rarely addressed servants directly, but this task could not be trusted to whispers, could not risk mercy traveling faster than fear. "I have a task for you," she said. Her voice was calm, measured, the tone of someone ordering silk, not death. "Of course, your majesty," Thomas replied. "Take Snow White into the forest," the queen said, "deep into the forest where no one goes." Thomas listened. And kill her. The words landed heavily. Surely he had misheard. Kill her, the queen repeated, impatient now. Run her through with your hunting knife. Make it quick if you're merciful, slow if you're not, I don't care. She leaned forward. Just make certain she's dead. Your Majesty, And bring me proof, she continued, speaking over him. Bring me her lungs and her liver. Thomas felt his stomach revolt. You want me to? His voice cracked. You want me to cut out her organs? Yes, her eyes glittered, not with rage, with anticipation. Bring them to me. I'll have the cook prepare them. I want to eat them. The words poisoned the air. Cannibalism, not accidental, not desperate, deliberate. She wanted to consume Snow White's organs, to swallow beauty, to make victory enter her body. This was not murder, this was absorption. Your Majesty, Thomas tried again. She's just a child, she's 7, she's the king's daughter. She's mine, the queen snapped. And I please to have her dead, her voice hardened. If you refuse, I'll find someone else, someone less delicate, someone who understands that disobedience has consequences. The threat did not need words. Refuse, and he would be hunted instead. Thomas bowed. As you command, Your Majesty. The next morning, Thomas approached Snow White with a smile he had practiced all night. We're going on an adventure, he told her. A walk in the forest to see flowers. To explore the deep woods. Snow White clapped her hands. She trusted Thomas. Everyone did. He had always been kind, always gentle. And as she followed him toward the trees, she had no idea the forest was meant to become her grave. Snow White held Thomas's hand as they entered the forest. She trusted him. He was the man who brought back venison for the kitchens. The man who sometimes carved little animals from wood for her, birds with crooked wings, deer with 2 long legs. She kept them carefully on her windowsill. A good man, that's what everyone said. The forest swallowed them slowly. Old oaks, beeches with pale, scarred bark. Branches tangled overhead, knotting together until sunlight thinned, then vanished entirely. With every step the world narrowed, the air cooled, the sounds softened. Snow White chattered as they walked, about birds she pointed out, about flowers she picked and dropped, about nothing at all. Her voice echoed with happiness. Thomas said nothing. The deeper they went, the quieter she became, as if the forest itself was teaching her to whisper. The knife was heavy. He felt its weight with every step. His hand drifted toward it, then away, to it, away, to it, away. How does a man murder a child? How does he look into trusting eyes, eyes that have never known cruelty, and drive a blade into a small chest? They walked for hours, far beyond any path, far beyond any place where voices traveled, far beyond hope. Finally, Thomas stopped. A clearing, ringed tightly by trees, no wind, no birds, no one to hear her scream. Snow White, Thomas said. His voice sounded torn. She turned to him and smiled. Yes, Thomas. He drew the knife. The metal caught what little light remained. Her smile vanished. Her eyes dropped to the blade, then lifted to his face, then back again. Understanding arrived slowly, like cold creeping into bones. She was 7. But she was not foolish. Please, she whispered. Her voice was so small it barely disturbed the air. Please don't. The queen ordered it, Thomas said, as if that explained anything, as if commands could scrub blood from hands. I'll run away, Snow White cried. Tears streaked her pale cheeks, bright and wet. I'll go far into the forest. I'll never come back. You can tell her you killed me. Please, please don't kill me. She reached for him, a child begging. Thomas looked at her, 7 years old, terrified, alive. He looked down at the knife, and he chose. Run, he said. She froze. Run, he repeated, louder now. Run and don't stop. Don't ever come back. His voice broke. The wild animals will probably kill you anyway, but at least I won't be the one to do it. Run, she ran. Branches tore at her clothes. Roots grabbed at her feet. She ran blind, sobbing, crashing through undergrowth too thick for a child's body. Thomas watched until she vanished into darkness. He stood alone in the clearing for a long time, listening, holding the knife, knowing he had just made the worst mistake of his life, and the only choice he could live with. A wild boar burst into the clearing, young, panicked, probably separated from its mother. Thomas moved without thinking. Training took over. The blade flashed, the animal collapsed, silence returned. He stared at the body, then at the knife, then at the problem that still needed solving. With shaking hands he cut, lungs, liver small, the right size, close enough. He wrapped them carefully and walked back to the castle. "It's done," Thomas said, presenting the bundle. "She's dead." The queen took the organs eagerly, held them up to the light, smiled. "Excellent," she whispered. She summoned the cook, had them seasoned, salted, prepared with care. That night she ate them, every bite, believing she was consuming Snow White's lungs and liver, believing she was swallowing beauty, youth, life itself. She chewed, she swallowed, and she felt whole again, victorious. That night she stood before her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," she asked, content, "who in this land is fairest of all?" "You, my queen," the mirror replied, "are fairest of all." The queen smiled and went to bed. She believed she had won. Meanwhile, in the forest, Snow White ran. She ran until her legs betrayed her, until her lungs burned, until the world blurred and spun and refused to stay upright. She collapsed against a tree, gasping, sobbing, 7 years old. Completely alone, the sun sank low. Shadows stretched long and thin, reaching for her like fingers. She heard movement in the undergrowth, breathing that was not hers, eyes watching from the dark. Wolves, bears, boars. The things that lived where children were not meant to be. The things that fed on those who strayed too far from light. The forest was awake, and it was hungry. A wolf stepped into the clearing, massive, shaggy. Its breath steamed in the cooling air. Its eyes caught the last scraps of dying sunlight and reflected them back, cold, intelligent, ancient. Snow White froze. She did not scream. Terror had stolen her voice. The wolf stared at her. She stared back. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then the wolf tilted its head, as if listening to something deeper than sound, as if weighing a choice. And then it turned away. It vanished into the trees without a sound. Snow White sucked in a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Then the forest tested her again. A bear emerged. Enormous, muscle and fur and quiet power. It could have ended her with a single motion. It sniffed the air, lowered its head, looked directly at her. Snow White closed her eyes. When she opened them, the bear was already leaving. One by one they came, wild boar, foxes, lynx with unblinking eyes. Each approached, each looked at her, and each walked away. The forest, brutal, indifferent, merciless, refused to take her. Even predators recognized what the queen could not, her innocence. Snow White did not understand. She only knew one impossible truth: she was still alive. She forced herself to stand. Her legs shook, her body protested, but she walked. She did not know where she was going, only where she was not going, away from the castle, away from the mirror, away from the queen, away from the clearing where a knife had gleamed in dying light. She walked as darkness thickened. Branches clawed at her dress. Thorns tore her skin. Her stomach cramped with hunger. Her eyes burned with exhaustion. And then she saw light. A cottage. Small, neat, smoke curled gently from its chimney. Golden light spilled from its windows like a promise. Warmth, shelter, safety. Snow White stumbled toward it. Her hands trembled as she knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Silence. She reached for the latch. The door opened. The cottage was empty, but it was warm, and there was food on the table, and she was so hungry it felt like dying. She hesitated. This was someone's home. You didn't just walk into a home uninvited. But she was 7 years old. Alone, starving, terrified, she stepped inside. Everything was small, unnaturally small. A table set with 7 tiny plates, 7 cups, 7 knives and forks. 7 chairs against the far wall, 7 small beds in a perfect row, 7 of everything. Snow White did not question it. Hunger left no room for wonder. She went to the table, took a little from each plate, careful not to empty anyone completely, sipped from each cup. Then she tried the beds, too hard, too soft, too short, one by one, until she found one that felt almost right. She lay down, pulled the blanket over her small body, and fell asleep instantly. She did not hear the door open, did not hear boots on the floor, did not hear the voices. 7 dwarves returned home that night. Men who worked deep beneath the mountains, digging for precious metals and stones. Hard labor, dangerous labor, honest labor. They knew immediately something was wrong. The door was unlatched, light burned inside. Someone had been there. "Who's been sitting in my chair?" said the first. "Who's been eating from my plate?" said the second. "Who's been drinking from my cup?" said the third. They moved through the cottage, unease growing heavier with every step. Hands hovered near tools. Eyes searched shadows. Someone had touched their things. The 7th dwarf stopped at his bed. "Someone's in my bed," he said. They gathered around, pulled back the blanket. A girl, skin white as snow, lips red as blood, hair black as ebony. She looked unreal, like a doll, like something crafted instead of born. She stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and she found herself surrounded. 7 small men, 7 unfamiliar faces, all staring. She screamed. "Don't be afraid," the first dwarf said quickly. But the forest had already taught her fear. "We won't hurt you," one of them said quickly. His voice was rough but not cruel. Another leaned forward. "But who are you? And how did you come to be here?" a third asked. Snow White's throat tightened. Then the words spilled out. She told them everything. About the queen, about the mirror, about Thomas and the knife flashing in the forest light, about running until her legs collapsed beneath her, about the animals that watched her and chose not to kill her, about stumbling through darkness until she found their cottage. She spoke until her voice shook. The dwarfs listened in silence. When she finished, they exchanged looks, grim, knowing. "Your stepmother will learn you're alive," one said quietly. "She won't stop," said another. "She never does." "You can't stay here," a third added, though his voice lacked conviction. They looked at the child standing before them, 7 years old, hollow-eyed, trembling, with nowhere left to go. They could not send her back into the forest. Finally, the first dwarf spoke. "You can stay," Snow White gasped. "But," he continued, lifting a finger, "you must work." She nodded immediately, desperate. "You'll keep house for us, cook. Clean, make the beds, wash the clothes. We're gone all day in the mines. You'll be alone most of the time. Can you do that?" "Yes," Snow White said quickly. "Yes, I can do all of it. Thank you so much." The dwarf's face hardened. "One more thing," he said, his tone changed. "Let no one in." Snow White went still. "Your stepmother is clever. She will find you. When she does, she won't come as a queen. She'll come disguised. She'll look harmless." He leaned closer. "You must not open the door for anyone. Do you understand?" "I understand," Snow White whispered. And so Snow White became a housemaid, 7 years old, working to earn her shelter, cooking and cleaning for 7 grown men. But it was better than being dead. Every morning the dwarfs left for the mines. Snow White cleaned the cottage, prepared meals, washed clothes in cold water until her hands ached. Every evening they returned to a warm meal and a tidy home. Time passed, weeks, months. The story does not say how long, long enough for Snow White to settle into routine, long enough for fear to dull, long enough to almost forget the knife and the clearing and the queen's eyes. And far away in the castle, the queen slept well. Every morning she stood before her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" And every morning the mirror answered as it had before. "You, my queen, are fairest of all." She ate heartily, rested deeply. The sickly yellow-green tinge faded from her skin. Jealousy loosened its grip. She had won. Snow White was dead, until one morning the mirror spoke differently. "Mirror, mirror on the wall," the queen asked, smiling. "You are fair, my queen," the mirror replied. "It is true." The queen relaxed. But the mirror continued. "Over the hills where the 7 dwarfs dwell, Snow White is still alive." The queen froze. "And she is 1,000 times fairer than you." The words shattered reality. Snow White was dead. She had eaten her, hadn't she? Understanding struck like a blow to the chest. The huntsman had lied. He had fed her animal flesh. He had betrayed her. Everything she had rebuilt, her peace, her certainty, her victory, collapsed. Jealousy surged back, fiercer than before. Because hope once restored makes loss unbearable. She screamed, ripped at her hair, smashed furniture, sent mirrors crashing to the floor. The servants heard the destruction and stayed away. When the rage finally burned out, the queen stood alone amid wreckage, breathing hard, thinking clearly. "If you want something done properly," she whispered, "you do it yourself." She would kill Snow White with her own hands. No intermediaries, no mercy. She went to her hidden chamber where she practiced darker arts, where forbidden tools were kept, where plans took shape in shadow. Days passed. When she emerged, she was transformed, not by magic, by craft. Makeup, padding, wrinkled prosthetics, a hunched spine. A voice made thin and cracked with age. She looked like an old peasant woman, harmless, invisible, and in her hands she carried silk bodice laces. Beautiful, delicate. The kind used to make young women look perfect. The kind that tied correctly could steal breath, could crush ribs, could kill without spilling a drop of blood. The queen, disguised as the old crone, trudged over 7 mountains, days of walking. Cold biting her bones, wind slicing through her cloak, snow crunching beneath her boots. She did not care. She would walk to the ends of the earth, across burning sands or frozen peaks if it meant finishing what she had started. She arrived at midday. The dwarfs were at the mines, Snow White alone, perfect. A timid knock echoed through the cottage. Snow White paused. Her cleaning cloth froze in midair. The dwarf's warning rang in her head. "Let no one in, no one." But curiosity gnawed at her. Outside, a bent old woman stood with a basket of wares, harmless, fragile, fragile as paper. "Pretty things for sale," the crone called softly. "Laces and ribbons, beautiful things for beautiful girls." Snow White hesitated, just looking, she thought. "Please don't let me in, I'm sorry," Snow White said, voice small. "Oh, you don't need to let me in, dear, just look at my wares," the woman coaxed. "See how pretty they are, just look." Snow White, young and bored from endless cleaning, edged toward the door. A crack, just a crack. "Oh, what a pretty girl you are," the crone said, stepping inside before Snow White could react. "And that dress not laced right at all. Here, let me show you." Before Snow White could protest, hands gripped the bodice, tighter, tighter, until her breath caught. "Nice and snug, that's how ladies wear them," the queen whispered, pulling with relentless strength. Snow White's eyes widened, her face turned red, then purple, then blue. She fell to the floor, unable to breathe, unable to scream. The queen hovered above, breathing hard, a shadow over a child. "Finally dead," she murmured. She left, the door open, the cottage silent. Snow White lay motionless on the floor, the laces cutting into her small body. She returned over the 7 mountains, straight to her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" Silence. The mirror could not lie. Snow White was not dead. Her body had shut down. Her lungs denied air. Her heart barely beat. The door stood open. Alarm shot through the dwarfs as they returned at sunset. They ran inside. Blue and still, Snow White lay prone on the floor. "The bodice," one shouted, the pressure released. A horrifying, rattling gasp escaped Snow White. Breath returned, color seeped back into her face, eyes fluttered, alive. "We told you," they shouted. "Your stepmother has found you." "She'll try again," Snow White sobbed. I'm sorry, I thought she seemed harmless, just an old woman. Don't think, the first dwarf barked. Never open the door for anyone, promise us. I promise, Snow White said. I will never, never again. But promises in fairy tales are fragile things, easily broken. The next morning the queen faced her mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all? The mirror answered. You are fair, my queen. It is true, but over the hills where the 7 dwarves dwell, Snow White is alive, and she is 1,000 times fairer than you. The queen screamed. A sound that shattered windows, a sound that rattled walls. She raged for hours, destroyed furniture. Cursed huntsmen, cursed dwarfs, cursed the impossibility of Snow White's survival. And when the fire of fury burned out, only one thing remained, cold, precise calculation. The bodice had failed, fine. If one method did not work, she would simply choose another. The queen returned to her hidden chamber, the room of shadows and secrets where she brewed poisons and planned deaths. Days passed. When she emerged, she wore a new disguise. Not the peddler, not the crone from before, someone else entirely. And this time she carried a comb. It was exquisite, gold filigree, fine teeth, crafted to catch the light, every inch of it soaked in poison. Once again she crossed the 7 mountains. Once again she arrived at midday. Once again the dwarfs were gone. Inside the cottage, Snow White heard the knock and felt dread coil in her stomach. She had promised. Promised she would not open the door. She went to the window. Outside stood a different old woman, no basket, no ribbons, just a gentle smile and a calm voice. Pretty things for sale, the woman called. Combs and brushes. Every girl deserves a beautiful comb. I can't let you in, Snow White said quickly. I'm not allowed. Oh, of course, dear, the woman replied smoothly. You don't need to let me in, just come to the window. Look, she raised the comb. It gleamed, perfect, irresistible. Snow White felt her resolve soften. The dwarfs had warned her not to open the door. They had said nothing about the window. It's very pretty, Snow White murmured. Take it, the woman said kindly. No charge, a gift for a lovely girl. Snow White hesitated. She shouldn't have, but she was young, and the comb was beautiful. She opened the window and reached out. Oh, but your hair is tangled, the woman said. Let me help, just lean out a little. Snow White leaned forward. That was all it took. The comb slid through her hair. The poison worked instantly. Snow White's eyes rolled back. Her body went slack. She collapsed halfway out the window, then fell lifeless to the ground below. The queen watched. Dead, she whispered. Finally, finally dead. She left without looking back. Again she crossed the 7 mountains. Again she stood before her mirror. But once more the mirror was silent, because once more Snow White was not dead. The poison had stunned her, not killed her. At sunset the dwarfs returned. They found Snow White crumpled beneath the window. The comb, one shouted. It's poisoned. They tore it from her hair. The poison stopped spreading. Snow White gasped, sharp, desperate, and woke. This time no one shouted. Fear had replaced anger. She won't stop, one dwarf said quietly. She'll keep coming. New disguises, new tricks. Then I won't even go near the door, Snow White said quickly. I won't go to the windows. I'll stay inside. She can't reach me. The dwarfs exchanged uneasy glances, then nodded. What choice did they have? No matter what you hear, the first dwarf pleaded. Don't open the door, don't look out, stay away. I promise, Snow White said. I promise. But far away, the queen was already preparing again. When the mirror told her once more that Snow White still lived, she did not scream, she did not rage, she smiled, a cold, dreadful smile. I see, she said softly. I see. She vanished into her secret chamber for 3 days and 3 nights. When she emerged, she carried an apple. It was flawless, red and white, glossy as glass, so perfect it seemed to glow in her hand. The kind of apple that makes your mouth water before you even taste it. Half of it was poisoned, the red half. and the poison was the deadliest she had ever made. The queen had learned. One bite would kill instantly, but the white half of the apple was clean, untouched, safe. This time, Snow White would have no choice, no chance to resist. The queen, in a third disguise, crossed the 7 mountains again. A farmer's wife this time, plump, cheerful, harmless, carrying a basket of apples, one poisoned among the ordinary. Midday. The dwarfs were gone. She knocked on the cottage door. Inside, Snow White froze. She'd promised. This time she would keep her promise. The old woman knocked again, softly calling, "Apples for sale, fresh apples, anyone home?" Silence. The queen smiled to herself. The girl had learned caution, but she had accounted for that. "Oh, well," the woman called, "no one's home. I'll just rest a bit before I continue my walk." She sat, eating an ordinary apple, savoring it, acting as if the taste alone was a gift from heaven. Snow White watched through the window, nothing dangerous. "Oh, hello there, dear," she said. "I didn't see you. Would you like an apple? Fresh from my orchard." "No, thank you," Snow White said, voice wary. "I can't take anything from strangers." "Very wise," the woman said softly. "Your parents taught you well, but look, watch. See for yourself." She pulled out another apple, the apple red and white, glowing, perfect, poisoned. "I'll cut it in half," the woman said. "We'll each eat half, then you'll know it's safe, like friends." The knife glinted in sunlight. A clean, precise slice. She ate the white half. Safe. Snow White stared, so perfect, so delicious. She was tired of fear, tired of hiding, tired of running. Surely this was safe. Surely she could trust her. She reached out, took the red half. "Thank you," she whispered. The old woman smiled. "Enjoy, dear." The poison lodged in her throat. Her eyes widened. She tried to cough, to breathe, to scream. Nothing. No unconscious sleep. No gentle, enchanted slumber. Dead, truly dead. The queen watched. No breath, no movement. Perfect. "Dead," she said softly. And this time she was right. She left the basket, crossed the 7 mountains again, returned to her mirror. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" The mirror answered. "You, my queen, fairest of all, finally." She slept better than she had in years, triumphant, secure, unchallenged. Meanwhile, in the forest cottage, the dwarfs returned. Saw Snow White dead on the floor, frantically tried everything. Laces cut, comb searched, poisons examined, nothing, no breath, no pulse, no hope. They wept, all 7 of them. 3 days passed, then a week, then more. Snow White did not decay. Her skin remained white as snow, her lips as red as blood, her hair as black as ebony. She lay as if sleeping, as if she might awaken, but she would not. She was dead. The dwarfs could not bear to bury her in cold earth, could not stand to imagine her face hidden forever beneath soil and shadow. So they did something else, something that in a fairy tale might seem romantic, but is, in truth, deeply unsettling. They built her a coffin of glass, transparent on all sides, so she could be seen perfectly, eternally, lined with silk, her name engraved in gold, Snow White, daughter of a king. They carried the coffin to the mountaintop, and then they kept watch. One always sat beside it, guarding her, ensuring no harm came, as safe as a dead girl in a glass coffin could be. Birds came, owls, ravens, doves. They perched nearby, mourning. Even the creatures of the forest seemed to grieve her. Days passed, weeks, months. Snow White lay preserved, untouched by decay. The poison had fixed her in that moment, eternal, perfect, silent. Years, perhaps. She remained unchanged while seasons shifted, while the dwarfs aged, while the world moved on without her. A monument to beauty, a corpse displayed. And then he came, a prince, no name given. A young man, wealthy, traveling through the mountains. He saw her coffin gleaming. Curiosity drew him closer, and then love. Let that sink in. He fell in love with a corpse, not her voice, not her mind, not her soul, but her beauty. The dwarfs watched, unsure, insane, wrong, certainly, but the prince was desperate, feverish. "I must have her," he begged. "I cannot live without her. I need her with me. I will honor her, treasure her." "Please," the dwarfs relented, pitying or perhaps just wanting him gone. "Take her," one said, "but treat her with honor. She was good and kind." Her coffin was carried down the mountain, and then it happened. The poisoned piece of apple dislodged. She coughed. She woke. Imagine years in death, no memory of the time past, confused, disoriented, the coffin, strangers, voices she had never heard. "Where am I?" she whispered. "You are safe," the prince said. "Come with me, be my bride." Snow White, alive once more, disoriented, frightened, had no choice. She agreed. Preparations began for a royal wedding. Invitations were sent, and of course the queen received hers. A chance to see and prove herself the fairest. She adorned herself in her finest gown. Jewels, beauty, poise, every inch the queen she had always believed herself to be. She asked the mirror one final time, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" The answer came, "You are fair, my queen, it is true, but the young queen is 1,000 times fairer than you." Snow White, alive, bride, fairest in the land, the queen's blood froze. Rage and disbelief twisted her. She went to the wedding. Magnificent palace, guests in finery, music swelling, and there she saw her, Snow White, alive, beautiful, perfect, standing beside the prince. Their eyes met, recognition, understanding, horror. The queen tried to flee, but the prince's guards were ready. They knew who she was, they knew her crimes. "Welcome, your majesty," the prince said coldly. "We've prepared something special for your arrival." Two guards brought forth iron shoes. "Red hot? No. No, please," she cried. They forced the shoes onto her feet. The scent of burning flesh filled the hall, screams echoed off stone walls, and then she danced. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, she danced in the glowing iron shoes. Pain consuming her every movement, screaming, begging, but no one stopped her. The queen's reign of terror, all her envy and malice had come full circle. The price of obsession, vanity, and cruelty paid in fire and agony. The wedding guests watched. Snow White watched. The prince watched. All of them watched the queen dance in the red-hot iron shoes. How long did she dance? The story doesn't say. Long enough for pain to consume her. Long enough for her feet to be destroyed. Long enough for her body to give out. She collapsed. Dead, murdered, tortured to death at her stepdaughter's wedding before hundreds of witnesses, and then the celebration continued. The queen's body removed, blood cleaned, the smell of burning flesh aired out, feasting, dancing, celebrating the royal marriage, Snow White and her prince, happily ever after. But pause, look closer. This story isn't about true love. It isn't about good triumphing over evil. It isn't really about jealousy either, though that plays a part. It's about what we do to women, about beauty as a prison, about a world that defines women by their appearance and punishes them for it. We are supposed to hate her. She is monstrous. She eats what she believes are a child's organs. She tries to kill Snow White multiple times, but her beauty is her identity, it's her power, it's her entire world. When the mirror calls her fairest, she is secure. When Snow White surpasses her, she loses everything. In this world, there can only be one fairest. Second place means worthless. Her envy consumes her like a disease. She cannot eat, cannot sleep. Her obsession isn't simply evil, it's a response to a world that values her solely for her appearance. She's aging. Her power and identity are slipping away. So she fights back in the only way she knows, destroying the one who threatens her beauty. The ideal, perfect, beautiful princess. Obedient, passive, silent, 7 years old when she almost dies. Her beauty, a child's beauty, becomes a death sentence. She is saved multiple times by accident or by the dwarfs. She acts passively. She does not fight. She is a vessel for other people's actions. And then death. She lies preserved, silent. Perfect, the ideal woman according to the story, beautiful, passive. silent, dead. And then a prince falls in love with her, not her mind, not her personality, her corpse, her appearance. He wants to possess her, display her, own her beauty. When she wakes and marries him, it isn't a fairy tale romance. It is survival. She has nowhere else to go. She has no agency. She marries a man who loved her as a corpse. The queen is punished, not swiftly, not fairly, not cleanly, but torturously. The heroes allow her to die slowly, painfully, publicly. This is framed as justice, but it is revenge. A grotesque spectacle at a wedding feast, pain as entertainment, justice as spectacle. Both women are defined entirely by appearance. The queen's worth exists only in being the fairest. Snow White's value exists only in being the fairest. Beauty drives envy, obsession, and violence. It creates competition among women. It creates passive victims and monstrous villains. It erases humanity in both the young and the old. Snow White's birth mother dies wishing for beauty. Not health, not strength, not kindness, only beauty. That wish seeds the tragedy. The stepmother, the aging mother, losing her looks, losing her power, losing her value. Her daughter's youth is a threat, a cruel, unnecessary competition. This dynamic repeats in real life. When women are taught that beauty is everything, there can be only one winner. The story depicts this toxicity, but solves it by torturing the older woman and rewarding the younger one with a prince. The central image of the story is Snow White, preserved, silent, unchanging. A beautiful, passive, eternal object. Viewed constantly, untouched, frozen in time, beauty frozen in time, humanity erased. Snow White's body becomes an icon, her value remains purely visual. The prince's love is obsession with her appearance, not her personhood. This story is dark, disturbing, revealing. It shows the consequences of defining women solely by beauty. It reveals a society that rewards passivity and appearance while punishing aging, agency, and autonomy. The tale of Snow White is not a simple fairy tale. It is a meditation on vanity, obsession, power, and the objectification of women. The thing that makes it uniquely disturbing, Snow White lying dead in a transparent coffin, preserved on display, looked at constantly but never touched, perfect, static, unchanging, its beauty frozen at its peak, beauty that never ages, never changes, never fades, but it is death. The only way to achieve that perfect, unchanging beauty is to die, to become an object, to give up agency, personality, growth, life itself. The glass coffin is what society asks of women. Be beautiful, stay beautiful, don't age, don't change, don't be fully human, just be perfect, still on display, and loved for it, like the prince loves his corpse bride. The story is hundreds of years old. Yet today we are still putting women in glass coffins. Social media, beauty standards, anti-aging industries, plastic surgery, still telling women that beauty is everything, that aging is failure, that perfection is the ultimate goal. Still making women compete for the title of fairest, still teaching that being beautiful but passive is better than being human. The Queen and Snow White are both prisoners of beauty, the Queen destroyed by losing it. Snow White valued only for having it. Neither escapes, neither wins, the Queen dies horribly. Snow White gets a prince who loved her when she was dead and silent, a man who wanted her appearance, not her personality. She gets to be a queen, rich and safe, but also owned. A prettier prison, not a happily ever after. This is not a romance. It is a horror story about what beauty does to women, both the beautiful and the formerly beautiful, the young and the aging, the winner and the loser, both destroyed by the same system, both victims of a world that values appearance above all else. The Queen in her red-hot shoes, Snow White in her glass coffin, dancing to someone else's tune, paying the price for beauty, and we call one justice, the other romance, but both are death. The story ends not with true love's kiss, not with good triumphing over evil, not neatly resolved. It ends with torture at a wedding, with a corpse bride, with a prince whose idea of love is ownership, with beauty that only wins by dying first. This is the real Snow White, the one told before we decided children needed pretty lies instead of ugly truths. A girl whose beauty was a curse from birth, hunted for her appearance, dead in a glass coffin for years, perfect, preserved, on display. A queen driven mad by jealousy, who ate what she thought were her daughter's organs, who died dancing in burning shoes while everyone watched. A prince who fell in love with a corpse, dwarfs who kept a dead girl on a mountaintop, thinking that was honor. A mirror that judged women by their appearance, starting a war with its honesty. It is a story about beauty as currency, about women forced to compete for a crown that will eventually kill them, about tying value to something that inevitably fades, about passive victimhood, about being nothing but beautiful and being rewarded by being claimed as an object. The sanitized versions lie. Disney's kiss implies choice. Modern retellings give her agency, make her a hero. But the original story shows the terrifying cost of a world obsessed with appearance. But the original doesn't do that. The original is honest. Honest about what happens to beautiful, passive girls in a world that values beauty above all else. They die. They get put in glass coffins. They get stared at. They get claimed. And we call it happily ever after. The brothers Grimm collected this story from old women in Germany. Women who understood what beauty demanded. Women who had watched girls grow into women and seen what happened to them. They told this story as a warning, not to be careful of jealous stepmothers, not to avoid poisoned apples, but to understand what beauty will cost you, what it will demand, what it will take. The queen pays with her sanity and her life. Snow White pays with her agency and her humanity. Both of them pay because beauty always demands payment. We sanitized it because we thought children couldn't handle the truth, because we wanted to believe beauty was a gift, not a curse, because we wanted to believe it led to happiness, not horror. But maybe we were wrong. Maybe children need to know that beauty is a trap, that being valued only for appearance will destroy you one way or another, that the glass coffin is always waiting. Maybe they need to know, fairest of all is a competition no one can win. The mirror will eventually turn against everyone. Time is undefeated, beauty fades, and then what are you worth? Maybe they need stories that tell the truth, that the system is broken, that the game is rigged, that beauty is a cage. Whether you are the fairest or the second fairest or the 10th, the Queen and Snow White are both victims, both prisoners, both destroyed by the same poison in different ways, or maybe not. Maybe children should keep their innocence, their belief that beauty is good, that evil gets punished and love conquers all. I don't know, but I know this. The story I just told you is older than the sanitized version. It survived for hundreds of years because people needed to hear it, because there are still queens going mad with jealousy over younger women, still Snow Whites being valued only for appearance, still princes who love the idea of women more than actual women, still glass coffins being prepared for beautiful girls, still red-hot shoes being forged for aging women, still mirrors on walls judging, comparing, declaring winners and losers in a game where everyone loses. The story hasn't ended. It's still being told. Every time a woman looks in a mirror and feels inadequate. Every time beauty is sold as the only thing that matters. Every time we celebrate youth and mock aging. Every time we put women in competition over appearance. Every time we build a glass coffin and call it a pedestal. So sleep now. Dream of glass coffins and poisoned apples. Dream of queens who eat their rivals and princes who love corpses. Dream of beauty that kills, mirrors that judge, red-hot shoes that burn. Dream of Snow White in her coffin, perfect, still dead. And when you wake, if you wake, remember, the glass coffin is still there, waiting. Always waiting for the next beautiful girl who believes being fairest of all is winning rather than losing. The mirror is still on the wall, still judging, still turning women against each other, still making beauty everything. And somewhere a queen is dancing in red-hot shoes while a bride watches. Somewhere a girl is lying in a glass coffin waiting for a prince who will love her corpse. Somewhere someone is asking, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is fairest of all?" And the answer is still destroying whoever hears it. The story isn't over. It's just changed costumes. Sleep well, and may your dreams be kinder than this story, but no less true.